What is up, everyone, and welcome back to the Biblical Hitmen. It's your host, Steven. I'm here with William Ramsey, the host of the William Ramsey Investigates podcast. And folks, this man is a researcher. He is highly intelligent in the subject matters that he dives into, and he's able to come on the show today and, just inform us on a lot of different topics. But folks, listen, if it's your first time or you're returning, you want to support the show, make sure you hit that subscribe button over on YouTube. Like the show, share it with your friends, drop a comment as well. That's the place that I get to directly engage with the audiences in the comments. But if you're not into the video stuff, come on over to the audio. We're on Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Pretty much anywhere you can consume all your podcast content. While you're there, if you like the show, drop a 5-star review. It definitely helps the show the most. And drop a comment, hit that notification bell, and follow all the things. But William, welcome to the show, man. Thanks.
Steven, thanks for the invite. Glad to be with you. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. For the audience that may not be familiar with who you are, what you do, if you wouldn't mind, just give a little introduction of yourself and where they can support you the most.
Well, I have a podcast, William Ramsey Investigates. It's according to Listen Notes, it's in the top 0.5% of podcasts in the world. I do most of my research is there, so my audio archives going back 15 years now. I started out as a guest in 2010 after my first book, which is called Prophet of Evil, Aleister Crowley, 9/11 and the New World Order, which is really kind of a biography about Crowley. And that's where I started off. And then I've just been putting out books and documentaries since then. And really, my podcast started during COVID when I got censored and moved all my stuff off of YouTube into a podcast so people could find my audio there. I wasn't censored at all. But I have a lot of research on a variety of different subjects. I've got 5 documentaries on my Patreon. So people, they can pay $5 a month. They could just pay $5 for 1 month and watch all 5 documentaries on a variety of different subjects. The occult, Smiley Face Killers, Occult Hollywood, Prophet of Evil, and Children of the Beast. So that's kind of like a visual representation of my books. So some people learn different ways. But a lot of the stuff I studied, I didn't know anything about. So in a lot of ways, it was kind of like a path of discovery. I didn't know Crowley. I didn't know his influence that much. So in a lot of ways, I'm just kind of like a intermediary between the research and just putting out to the public what I've learned over this amount of time. So yeah, it's been a while, 15 years.
Yeah, man. That's Crowley has been a topic, someone who has been revealed to society, I feel like, in the past 4 years, right? It seemed to be like around 2020, 2022 time frame where a lot of people Crowley started there was clips that were going viral of this guy, Crowley, what he was, what he did, who he was involved with, who he influenced. What got you into diving into the workers of the occult, pertaining to, its connection to society?
Well, it's like I said, I didn't know much about it. I was not an occultist. I was raised Catholic. I was, Christian. I didn't know all this stuff. I had kind of a superficial understanding of Crowley, maybe from like Ozzy Osbourne's song, Mr. Crowley. But really what set me down that path was kind of seeing these kind of numerical things in 9/11. It's still, when you say 9/11, you're saying 11. I thought they were random, but then I just started noticing a pattern. Like, what are all these 11s doing here? Flight 11 and the Twin Towers are fully occulted buildings, and they're seen in common culture. And so I'm like, what's this 9377? Does this have any connection? And really, I just kind of came back just by seeing stuff in common culture and what clothes people are wearing. I'm like, well, who is this guy then? And then I realized this guy has like a really interesting background. A lot of people didn't go into kind of some of the details. They were definitely expurgating some of the darker aspects of Crowley. So I was like, wow, this guy's really dark. He actually wanted to have a political change in the world. He's totally a Satanist. People called him an occultist. He said he wanted to be the chief of staff of the devil. So I'm like, well, let's see who this guy really is. So I did the research myself. And that was really through 9/11 with all this numerology. And I think I proved it in my book that 93 really is Crowley's number. And the reason that it is his number is through gematria, which is a subset of the Kabbalah where words have numerical value. And the breakdown of 2 of the main words in Crowley, his religion that he started, he called Thelema, which is Greek for will. and that breaks down to 93, and also agape, which is a Greek Christian word too, meaning love. That breaks down to 93. So Crowley saw this kind of correspondence between that number and his concepts. And so he would actually just write shorthand 93, 93, 93. And you see that in Flight 93 in 9/11. So there's weird occult markers, and it goes way back, but yeah, that's kind of how I got started. And then it just became kind of like a research adventure. Who was this guy? Who did he influence? I had heard stuff about Led Zeppelin and Jim Morrison and some of these other figures, Ozzy, like I mentioned. And he had a pretty vast amount of influence. He influenced just like so many other occultists. So Crowley's 1875, died in 1947. But like his followers and his ideas really, there were people who found him very attractive. A lot of elitist and things. He called himself the priest to the princes. And so he was really an aristocrat. He never worked a day in his life. He never had any like real labor stuff. So he had a very high life. He always had money. He never really had to actually work a day job. So he really devoted himself to three things in his life, which are mountain climbing, believe it or not, or rock climbing, poetry, and the occult. And so he went through all these occult orders. He said he had enough kind of regalia and medals to bury an elephant. Like that's how he was networked globally into all these kind of
Oh,
secret
wow.
societies. Yeah.
Wow.
And that's all in my book. You can see it in Prophet of Evil, like all those quotes and everything. Like I think it has 500 footnotes. But he really wanted to. He came out of Cambridge, like so. He went to one of the best schools at the very apex of the British Empire, I might add. So he was traveling around, but he really wanted to be a luminary. He had been at this place that had future kings of England and great poets. And so he really saw himself in that thing, that he was very ambitious, and he was very literate. He was a great writer. I mean, they're really evil because they're really smart. He's a super smart guy and great writer, and could write books. Like his output was extraordinary. Like he really had kind of an intellectual stamina, but all in the purpose of like evil. And so, in secret societies and rituals, I mean, really incredible stuff. He had his own kind of international magical group called the Astrum Argentum, or AA, which is really something you could do, where the way that it's structured is that you would just find one other person to teach you, and then you'd have this kind of master acolyte kind of relationship, and you would go through. And so that AA is still around today. And also he became the head of the OTO, which strangely enough started in Germany. It's the Ordo Templi Orientis. And he became its head in 1925. And overlaps with a lot of Nazis, a lot of people Hitler knew, so there's this international influence. The Nazi Party itself, when it started, was kind of like a right-wing party, but different than the Christians. So there's the Christian right in Germany. The Nazis were not the Christian right; they were the pagan, and a lot of homosexuals were in Nazi Party, and so a lot of those people kind of overlap with the OTO and Crowley. And Crowley actually was in the Weimar Republic in the early 30s, believe it or not. And
Right,
so
right. I think too what helped motivate him to practice the things he did, and what gave him a lot of not just motivation, but like what determined him the most is I think he hated the Christian God, right? I think he had
yeah,
something against. No, I think that was a part of his growing up, right? Didn't he kind of come from some sort of background like that?
he grew up in what could be called a very rigid Christian household. There were Bible readings, very strict. They were members of Darby's Plymouth Brethren. So he kind of got this thing. He was actually a subset. They thought of themselves even more special than the Plymouth Brethren. They were called the Exclusive Brethren. So Crowley was brought up in that environment. He was sent to private schools for the Exclusive Brethren, and that's kind of what he grew up with. So he rebelled against that. His father died, I think, when Crowley was 14 or 12, and he loved his dad. So then he was in the care of his mom and his uncle, who he really didn't like. So he really rebelled, like you said, and really wanted to overthrow Christianity. There's statements he made to other people where he's like, you see this Christian, eventually you will have Crowleyanity will supersede Christianity. So he had these very bold statements that he was going to overthrow the Christian world. And he called it the dawn of the age of Horus. Like the Horus is the hawk-headed god. So he really saw it as the birth of the child, which is this new aeon. He actually had similar ideas as Hitler, this idea of aeonic change, which you see kind of filtered through the occult orders all the way up to the present day. But it's the idea that we're not trying to create a new kind of political system. We're trying to make change for 1,000 years. And so Crowley advocated that, like this aeonic change.
Is that something like in comparison to what we hear as today as the golden age?
Kind of, yeah. It does kind of tie
some
into
idea,
that.
right?
Yeah,
Something
it's
like
similar.
that?
It's not exact terminology, but it is kind of this whole new change and this new updated kind of world. That golden age comes out of Blavatsky and Bailey and stuff like that. Similar terminology.
Right.
And I mean, this occult stuff is very important because Trump knows a lot of the occult things. Like he presents himself as a Christian. He doesn't know anything about. He never quotes Christianity, by the way. He holds this book up like a prop or something like that. He knows a lot of the occult symbology, like tesseracts and things like that, and this whole golden idea, and thinks of himself as almost like a demigod. So he he's I wouldn't put him in the Christian faith. He presents it for Christianity, much like Bush family too, actually. So, but Crowley's like this aeonic change is very. I mean, in my book, Children of the Beast, I compare Hitler and Crowley and show a lot of their ideologies are the same as Hitler as an occultist and a black magician was. And after Hitler died, and Crowley said, "Before Hitler was, I am." So he's
Oh
like
my
literally
gosh.
taking it straight out of the New Testament. That's one of the interesting things about Crowley is how smart he was, but he knew the Bible back. He just rejected it. He actually
Right.
said he actually made a statement. I have no reason to disbelieve anything in the Bible as fake. I just reject it. So he wasn't an atheist or thought that Christ was, something from like a representation of old gods or something like that. He actually said, fine, I still reject it. So that's kind of
Yeah.
Crowley in a nutshell. I mean, you can get into the deeper things about him. He had scarlet women. He branded them it gets stark. This is a lot of stuff that's kept out of biographies, but he literally saw them as these females as magical repositories and kind of mediums between the spirit world. And he called them scarlet women, and he was the beast. So he took that straight out of Revelation. He actually wrote rituals that you can see in movies, actually representations of these rituals. The Ninth Gate that came out in 1999, featuring Johnny Depp, he's actually in the beast role in that. And yeah, it's pretty dark.
That's
And
crazy.
yeah, it's crazy. But these scarlet women, he would take his idea of the mark of the beast. So this is also from Revelation. He had his idea of the mark of the beast, which you can just scroll. You can go to Google and just look it up. But it's a solar phallic representation of the planets and everything. He would take that and brand his women with that on their chest. So he
Right.
literally branded them like somebody would brand a cow. And
Right.
every one of those scarlet women, he was like the ultimate kind of vampire parasite in some ways, because after they were done with Crowley, scarlet women either killed themselves or went insane or went into alcoholism or something like that.
Well, their minds have been fractured so much through trauma. I'm sure that they
Yeah,
never would be the same.
I think you're right. So, I mean, that's like one of the list of like the negative things about Crowley. He had 5 children. There's no care for parenting in this guy. Like he's never spending time with his children. He doesn't care. He said she'll make a good whore about one of his children. Like that's nothing you want to hear out of a father's mouth. Um, a lot of his followers they're bankrupt, insane. Uh, some went on to kind of political places. Like there was his heir in the UK at one point. his assumed heir, was a guy by the name of Tom Dryburgh, who in the States, I don't think his name would be that familiar, but in the UK, he's a very well-known political figure. He would be like Hillary Clinton, like the head of the Labour Party, so the Liberal Party. He was like that. So this is a guy who's hanging out with Crowley, who made an oath to Crowley, who was kind of his heir. Some of these political people knew him, like Ian Fleming knew him and modeled some of his, like his first person, his name is Le Chiffre in Casino Royale. That's based on Crowley. So representations of Crowley kind of go through common culture a lot. And some are just named Crowley, like they're obvious representations, or some just faintly resemble Crowley. So he kind of has bled into common culture and cultural references. And all the way up to like, people who were associated with the Manson family. Kenneth Anger was a huge follower. And all the way up to like, modern kind of movie players. Like Kenneth Anger was very influential on like Scorsese or like things like the Scorsese says, oh, Kenneth Anger is this guy. This is a guy who was like a major Crowley figure who literally lived with Bobby Bouzoulet of the Manson family. Like it's left out, but like Kenneth Anger bleeds over to like Jimmy Page, who like he was like a collector of Crowley's items, and they would go to like, Barclays auctions and stuff and be together. And Lucifer, actually, Bobby Bouzoulet was in Lucifer Rising. That was filmed by, or no, it was Ritual of My Demon Brother or something like that. So it's just like you can just follow this kind of trace of the kind of the influence of Crowley on modern culture and modern occultism too. Like, but like, I was kind of just talking about how dark he was. Like these women, the children. There's really dark stuff in his diaries that he probably never thought would be published. Super dark stuff like, eating human parts of
Right.
your body and stuff.
Wasn't he very fascinated by, blood, spit, urine,
Yeah,
and all these other liquids that the body kind of, has.
right, like the opposite, like everything's inverted, but like the cakes of light, like everything's, yeah. When you read Crowley, he's so transgressive that it's hard to kind of understand him, because the Black Brotherhood for him is Christianity. So like you think in a Christian mind, well, the Black Brotherhood, that must be occultist, but in his mind, it's inverted. So it's kind of hard to figure it out, but he, like his cakes of light really aren't cakes of light. They're mixes of body fluids and stuff like that. Like it gets really dark.
Yeah.
Um,
So out of all of his practices and because he's studied a lot of religions, didn't he? I mean, he was.
Absolutely.
So could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, when he created Thelema, he really was integrating a lot of his knowledge. At that time, at the end of the 19th century, this is when Blavatsky was kind of coming together and theosophical ideas. And it was really this kind of, all these ideas from the East were coming West that hadn't really been there with that much fanfare before that. So you had ideas like Buddhism, yoga, um, other things like that were coming west, and Crowley was part of that tradition. So he came out of Masonry. He also went into a post Masonic order that was involved in ceremonial magic, and it involved other famous people. And those ideas all fused together at Thelema. Really, his kind of event that he later in his life said was his most important event was when he was coming back from India. He stopped in Egypt, and he said he received a book from a being that he called Iwas, and he was dictated to him over his shoulder for 3 days, and that he called that the Book of the Law, and that's also what kind of the Masons called their book. And that receipt of that 3-day channeling thing from Iwas became the central component of his religion of Thelema. And it's broken up into 3 different parts. And in the last part, it's the most vicious, because it's like that's the part that supposedly Horus, or the hawk-headed god, gave to him. It's very anti-Christian. It's actually anti-other religions. So that's kind of the central component. But he also just integrated all of his knowledge about ceremonial magic, yoga, practices, and all this stuff into his religion of Thelema, which is pretty ornate. So you have to kind of put him in one facet of Crowley is kind of as a cult leader, as a really an occult cult leader that had his own organization globally, really, whoever wanted to get involved, and all done through secrecy and different magical names and things like that. So almost like how the mafia or a mob would give people nicknames, they all had these kind of magical names that so people wouldn't know. There wouldn't be something riding like
Right.
Bob Jones Jr., but it would be Frater X or Frater, Sun and Stars or something. Frater is like the name, like Frater or Soror, so the brothers and sisters in there kind of ideas. So his unpacking Thelema, his religion, is kind of a challenge in itself. He wrote all kinds of rituals. So he had like Liber 11, Liber 77, and all this stuff was organized and into these kind of ritual practices that you could take, and it's all coded language. Some is very obvious, like the references to, I've done papers on references to child sacrifice are in there. They're conveniently overlooked by a lot of pro-Crowley kind of writers. And they also say, like, he's using symbolism. Like, no, he's not. He's literally saying, take the child and sacrifice him on the freaking altar. But yeah, they lie. It's gaslighting. But there's all kind, it's pretty ornate. Like I said, Crowley was a superb. He was a master of the English language, prose and poetry. His poetry is not that good, in my opinion. He never really achieved the fame for his poetry that he wanted, but he put out a lot of poetry. But this all went into his religion. It became kind of his master text was called Magic in Theory and Practice. And that kind of is like the intro to Crowley that most people have, is trying to figure. And you can the section on the Beast and the Scarlet Woman is interesting. It's right in that book too.
Wow.
But it became kind of a repository of all of his thoughts. Like, I mean, the guy that was his job, was occultism. He never worked a 9-to-5 job. So he had the energy and time constantly putting out, the output was just almost constant. But like, to come loop back around, that's kind of the answer to your question, is like a lot of information went into Thelema, and it involved this kind of new ideas. He actually put in one of his, I think it's A Voice in the Silence, which is actually something made by Blavatsky. So he liked Blavatsky. He was aware of Blavatsky and gave her kind of, credence by taking some of her writings and integrating them into his kind of ritual practices and stuff like that.
Yeah, wasn't he very interested in Egypt? Right? Wasn't he? Very.
I think that's
all those
like
rituals.
Yeah. I think that comes out of the Masonic aspect of the occult, is like going back to Egypt and the household gods and the godheads there, and that kind of practice, like the non-Christian practice, but like the kind of ancient Egypt is this kind of like thing all the way through Masonry too. So I think that was part of his kind of thing, was definitely this kind of Egyptian ethnography, or the religion of the Egyptians.
Yeah. So with all of his practices with the occult, what do you think his goal was?
I think he really wanted to deify himself. Like he wrote in Liber 77, there is no God but man. So it's almost like a super celebrity. Like that's the way he wanted to see himself. So self-deification. And then really the overthrow of the conventional order of things. Like he was really a rebel. And I think that he wanted to storm heaven, really. And as a kind of a true devil worshiper, he was smart enough not to kind of even use those terms. But you have to see later on in Magic and Theory and Practice, he admits that this AWAS being who was supposedly channeling this book to him is a representation of Lucifer, right? So he like coded all. We have to remember, this is a different era, so they had to code a lot of stuff, because you could still be burned at the stake or get killed or be put in jail. Now you could just say you're a devil worshiper, but back then there were consequences, is my understanding. That's how much the culture has changed, due to, in part, by Crowley. So to answer your question, it was self-deification and overthrowing the order of all. He really wanted to overthrow everything: the cultural order, the political order, the intellectual order, and anything to undermine Christianity. I think he would have done.
Yeah, and I
And I
think
think,
too. Oh, go ahead.
well, one of his other treatises that's overlooked by other people is called "The World's Tragedy," which is a play. And the world's tragedy, in Crowley's opinion, is Jesus, right? And in this kind of play, which involves child sacrifice, he really goes after the person of Christ. Almost every slur that you could imagine is in there that people have used against Jesus, the Lord Jesus Christ, is in the world's tragedy. And then there's magic that takes place, and there's Theban stuff, which is like the kind of place of magic in ancient Greece. And then at the end, Christ is thrown down and this new figure is put in, and that person is Crowley. So like it's almost like it's like a fictional fantasy of his worldview, which is taking down Christ. And I think that was kind of his thing. Like there was so much sacrilege in his writings and stuff. Like one of his, and you see this in the children in Prophet of Evil, is like one of his rituals was called the cross of a frog, where you literally crucify a frog and represent as a representation of Christ. So Christ is a frog. You take it and you kill it and you bury it and you bring it back up. Like this is crazy. Like there's all kinds of
Wow.
stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of similarity with what we're kind of talking about. Where now some people may have may disagree with what I'm trying to say here, but I think that the founding fathers, the men that kind of built this country, I think they were deists. I think they were also trying to be making themselves as God, but I think they were also occultists. I'm not speaking for every single one of them, but you know, it was saturated with what they were practicing, what they believed in. When Jefferson laid the cornerstone of the Capitol building, it was all a Masonic ritual. We know that there's a lot of Freemasons that are in that group as well. It makes me think when you were talking about, where for the things that Crowley was doing, it was very contrary to the culture, and people wouldn't have liked what he was doing, or even just people back in the day before this country was created. There was the same views. The Christianity was something that populated most of the land, and when they would see occultist sorcerers or magicians doing what it is that they would be doing, there would be conflict between the two. But I think that's why, at least with the First Amendment, they made, the freedom of religion, which I think it's a good thing. Don't get me wrong. I think what the founding fathers of this country did was something to create the greatest nation in the entire world, right? But I also think there's things that they do so that they can protect themselves as well. If you follow with what
Yeah,
I'm
I think
saying.
so. I think so. I think you're right. I mean, I think George Washington, I mean, certainly Franklin is an occultist. Like he started the first lodge, I think, in Philadelphia. He's involved with the Hellfire Club. He has a very different non-Christian view of his own interpersonal stuff. He's really kind of an illuminist in some ways. So I think for
Yeah.
sure you can target him, but I think you're right. They're not super rigid Christians, I would say. I mean, it's hard to put a pinpoint on it because I think Washington. I mean, you can do the whole thing. A lot of them were very serious Christians, but I think that you have to remember at that time, like Salem witch trials weren't that far off. Like it's probably like 100 or
Yeah.
150 years from 1776. Like that was a big deal, and it still kind of resonates through our culture. They call it a witch trial. I'm undergoing a witch trial, which it's been besmirched, but they really thought something bad was going on there. They thought that there were supernatural events. So that, I mean, it wasn't like they just busted all those people, but like it attracted Cotton Mather, Increased Mather, all these other characters from who were very religious. So you're right. They may have been a cult. You can do a survey over all those guys, but they're not all super rigid Christians. There's no question about
Yeah,
it.
well, look at today. We can see it today. We know
Yeah,
Donald Trump is not a Christian, but he's
yeah.
waving this Bible and the religion around as if he is of the same belief, right? Of the crowd that he's talking to. So I think nothing's really changed under the sun. I think these are tactics that these people use because it really gains the trust, and it just gains the vote. It gains the support of the masses, right? The people of the land. I think that's why they do things like this.
That's as old as the hills, right? I mean, that's what they've done forever. It's
Yeah,
some of these guys are real. I mean, you could go back to presidents of the United States and like even Lincoln himself. They used to call him an infidel because he didn't really reflect all the Christian ideas. Like those are back in the early 19th century. So you could just take that list all the way up to the president and go, who's like really, I mean, George Bush Sr. is a Luciferian. Like he's not a Christian. Like he goes and does ritual magic in a tomb at Yale. Like this is like
right.
two-faced. Like they deceived those people and his son too.
Right.
And
You
I
know
mean,
what's crazy too about Yale is the courtyard there is shows the diagram of the Thelema symbol, like from a satellite view or from like a drone view over the courtyard at Yale. It's the Thelema symbol. It's
is
pretty
it
obvious.
the unicursal hexagram? Is that what it is?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's where it's all connected with one drawing, if that makes any
Right.
sense.
Yeah. That's actually Crowley's invention. It's my understanding. So
Hmm.
the unicursal hexagram with no stop, you just do it all in one thing has some mystical, witchy meaning. But the in the internal courtyard of the tomb itself that Skull and Bones is in it's very telling. There's all kinds of like ritual urns. There are skeletons. They're all making the sign of silence, right? These like that come out of masonry. This is another Masonic sign too. If you ever see anybody putting their thumb on their chin, it means I'm with the group. Like it's a secret sign. You'll see it in like so many pictures of authors and things like that. Or even directors, or Quentin Tarantino does it all the time.
Ah,
Yeah. You'll see it in Fight Club and stuff like that. Keep an eye out for that. This is like there's infamous pictures of all these celebrities doing these weird signs. It's because they're all part of the cult. They're all part of the global secret society. That's the kind of glass window of Hollywood is like, are you going to join the secret society and stuff like that? But anyway, that's at the tomb of in Yale. So that place, even itself, even like the architecture is occulted. And so many guys come out of Skull and Bones and have influenced the world, really. There's just Skull and Bones guys all through the National Security Act of 1947, CIA, people in government, going back generations. So it's like these are occultist guys. They're not, they are into power and political power. I mean, it's really, I mean, and it's just not talked about. Like, why is this not being bandied about? Why aren't people acknowledging this? And it's for a
yeah.
reason, because it's all secret. And there's that famous kind of, I forgot who the broadcaster was, but he asked both Kerry, who's on the left, and George Bush Jr., who's on the right, you're both members of the secret society, Skull and Bones. Can you talk about it? He's like, no, we can't talk about it. They both smiled the same way, like, ha, ha, ha. And then that guy was dead. Forgot his name, but he like died
Oh
of a heart
man.
attack. Yeah. Yeah. Ever see that?
I've seen the interview that what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think they work. They. This is two wings of the same bird, right?
Yeah.
And
No
if it is
question.
even an eagle, like they say it is, because I know Manly P. Hall has written down that it could be the phoenix. It could be this a different symbol than what it's actually represented as, if that makes any sense. I don't know, especially just the things on the dollar bill. There's so many occult numbers, right? There was 13 colonies, 13, right? Going with the Osiris
There's the
mythology and
owl, the
ritual.
hidden owl, the owl kind of symbolism that goes all the way to Bohemian Grove. The wisdom that flies at night, right? So the owl flies at night. So you see that around. That's a symbol of theirs. It's just
Oh
it's
yeah,
everywhere. The capstone, right? So the capstone isn't on the thing. Almost every, what should really terrify you is that almost every federal building has the seal, the Great Seal, on the $1 bill in a kind of like metal thing right on the entryway. It's showing you that what they're really part of. They're actually Masonic. It's actually, these are ashlars. This is we're trying to put together and build this great society. So
Right.
stuff all comes out through Crowley's like somebody who's part of that whole kind of current, that whole cultural change that even is in the United States. And I think that that's why, like, there's arguments where the Bushes are really related to Crowley through Barbara, who looks like Crowley, looks like a female version of Crowley. But
Yeah.
ideology, I think that in there, they have a secret library in most of those clubs and stuff, in Masonic lodges and at the tomb. And I think that those guys are exposed to some of these ideas that are written in magic and theory and practice and stuff. They're clear. There's videos of guys doing ceremony. I mean, what's the movie with Matt Damon and Robert De Niro where they're talking about the CIA and the club? They actually film a place that looks like the tomb. Like, it's like they put time and effort into it. And that is can't remember the name of the film right
Yeah,
now.
I love how they put things in movies because it really illustrates kind of what it really looks like or what it may really go down as,
It's I think they were trying to tell the truth. And the movie's really rough. Like, they don't portray Matt Damon, who's a CIA agent and a member of Skull and Bones. They don't portray him well. It's a very negative representation of like Anglo-Saxon waspism and stuff like that. It gets pretty dark, but I'll try to find the name of it. But anyway, it's important because these occultists are running the country, or were running the country for a long period of time. So
right.
it's yeah.
So we talked about Aleister Crowley being a big influence, right? On a lot of people, positions
The Good
of
Shepherd.
power.
Yeah, the Good Shepherd.
Oh, the Good Shepherd. Right.
Worth looking into, worth checking out again. So.
Right on. Who do you? So, because I know he was on the cover of the Beatles' first album, I believe it was. So, a lot of people in the music industry, a lot of people that may be a part of this big propaganda machine, he had a big influence on. What do you think his role was with these celebrities?
I think that what Crowley offered is what they covet. So he said worldly riches. So a celebrity is basically like a star or self-deification. So I think that that's part of it too.
Right.
Fame, money, fame, and personal deification, which what he was into. So I think that's the offering. He was on the cover of was it Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band? Arguably could have been Sergeant Pepper Crowley, because the album starts off, it was 20 years ago today Sergeant Pepper taught the band to play. And it's like, could be a word pun on Crowley, who died, I think, in 47. And I think that album came out in 67, 68, something like that.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so like, and we talk about Page, Ozzy Osbourne, most of these dark guys they know a lot about Crowley. Ozzy knows deeper things than maybe is portrayed, because Flying High Again is about astral travel. And that's kind of one of the techniques that Crowley taught, is like your spirit or consciousness leaving your body and traveling through some other aether or some other dimension. Also, like, references to Crowley are in David Bowie, who's a ceremonial magician. Like, he's not a Christian. He wasn't a Christian, I should say.
Yeah. Do you think he influenced rock and roll?
Absolutely, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
I think his ideas are around. I think that he actually said, like, the birth of the child will take place in the 60s. And then in the 60s, you have this age of Aquarius, or this real social change. Like, it's almost, and people like Leary's at the forefront. Leary's talking to Huxley, who knew Crowley. Huxley wrote a paper called "Do What You Will," which is Crowley's kind of dictum. "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of law." 11 words, by the way. But Huxley and Leary were conversing about LSD. Leary would go on to be a major cultural figure, change agent, anti-Christian, Esalen. I mean, you can go through the list who his friends were. Robert Anton Wilson, influenced by Crowley, definitely an occultist. But Leary went on to say, like, he actually ended up in Algeria after he got busted out of the jail here. And he said that the correspondences or similarities between my life and Crowley are obvious, and I am here to carry on his tradition. So he was carrying on the Crowleyan tradition. That's what he thought. And this is like a major figure. LSD, free love, the whole bit. Self-deification, new ideas. So, and then Leary's influencing the Beatles. Like, they're referencing his stuff to write songs, and it's overlapping. It's so I think that Crowley's ideas definitely seeded and were, I think of influential in so many changes up to the current day. Like, there's some rapper I can't remember who loves Crowley. Like, he's an African American guy who has "Do What Thou Wilt" on his back. Like, so rappers are influenced by Crowley. Modern, occultists have all had a Crowley phase, whether it's Aquino, LaVey.
I wonder if it's Jay-Z. Is it Jay-Z?
Jay-Z had that "Do What Thou Wilt" shirt. I think that's confirmed.
Right.
There's another guy, I think it's Ab-Soul is his name, but like his whole shtick is Crowley. I think it's Ab-Soul rapper. He's from California. Man. Yeah, Ab-Soul, American rapper. He has on his back, he has all the kind of like tattoos, occult tattoos and stuff like that. But his back tattoo says "Do What Thou Wilt." And his albums are like, he has an album from 2016, "Do What Thou Wilt." That's the name of it. Like, it's not even hidden. I think he's successful. I think he's well known. I think Ab-Soul isn't his real name, but
what do you think they're
examples,
doing? Yeah, what do you think they're doing with these songs before they're put on the different radio channels and like, what do you think they're doing to these albums? Because I forget the guy's name. It's going mind blank, but this had to be back 10 years ago now. He was a part of an elite secret society family, and he came out. John Todd, I think his name is, right? And he was talking about what they kind of do with these albums before they give them out to the public or put them on the record companies and label them out there. But what do you think? What do you think they're doing with this music?
I think it's like a lot of it's not organic. So it's definitely being written by ghostwriters and other things. Like, you can see that even in the Diddy trial. This guy was kind of hired by Diddy and sued him civilly, but he's like writing all the music. So he's putting it out. So I think that a lot of these entertainers they're just kind of stage performers in a lot of ways. So I think that there may be other agendas that influence the output of music. I don't think the Beatles wrote all their songs. I think that's pretty much apparent. And so many other performers haven't written their songs. So depending on stuff, like, I think they're trying to popularize certain thing, and some of it's clearly magic or ceremonial magic or this kind of Age of Horus, Age of Aquarius ideas. So you don't know what's behind the curtain in a lot of ways.
Right. Yeah, it's not always as is. There's always something to it. So we talked about
even today, even in like these kind of talking heads and people who are out there, you find out, somebody's financing them. Somebody's giving them $10,000 a month. Like, of course they can post all day because they're being financed by some rich guy. They're really just puppeteered. They're really puppets. They're not even independent journalists. Like, nobody's offered me $10,000 a month to talk, but some of these people are really just like, and it's from the right and the left or whatever agenda it is, pro-Israel or, right wing or left, even left wings, like a lot of financing going on there. So you can just extrapolate that to the music industry, the film industry, all these other things. Like, how was some of this culture creation taking place?
Yeah. So you talked about the connection that Aleister Crowley had with AWAS, right? I want to share something with you because
the Lord of the Air, right? That's what that means.
Yeah. And so this was the entity that helped him write the Book of the Law, right?
Correct. Or
Okay.
actually dictated to him. According to him, Crowley, it was dictated to him, but that's an open question. It sealed him kind of as a kind of master, at the upper tier of the world occult, this receipt of the Book of the Law, channeled book. A lot of channel books are out there, actually, believe it or not. But it kind of sealed him. And there is and he was young, 26, 27, I think, when that happened. I think that so there's arguments. Some people have said it's very fortuitous that happened there at that right place on his way back from India, where he could actually maybe pre-think a lot of this stuff. And there's been claims that the Book of the Law resembles some writings of Nietzsche, but it may have come from his deeper subconscious. I don't know, but I think it's
Yeah.
an interesting critique of Crowley because it's so fortuitous for him. And then it says, like, I'm contacting Satan. I'm literally, Iwas is the Lord of the Air. So
Wow,
yeah,
dude.
yeah.
So I live here in Central Florida. Me and my wife, my daughter, we have Disney passes, and I want to share this experience with you because it stuck out to me. And something you said kind of triggered this thought where Crowley was on his way back from India, and this is kind of like when he happened to have this interaction, right, with this entity. Well, the religion in India is Hindu, right? And so the Hindu religion, Shiva, all this, right? The tri-gods that they have. But I'm in Disney and we're in Animal Kingdom. And a part of Animal Kingdom is an area called Pandora, based off of the movie Avatar. And there's a ride there that we were on. It's a little boat ride that you kind of go slow, but it takes you around the cinematic feel that you're actually on the Avatar planet from the movie. So we're moving around it. And when we get 3/4 of the way done, this song kind of starts to get louder and louder, and it's coming. It's because you're getting to the end. But this song was the female magi from the movie, could resemble a female goddess, right? Which there's a lot of spiritual connections with not only global leaders but also people that have started nations have had contact with a female goddess. So, anyways, we get to the main part of the end, which is this blue avatar lady who is probably 10 to 11 feet tall, sitting in a crisscross, stance, and she's singing "Wah, Wah, Wah," and Wah, which could be connected to the same name as Awas. It's just a different way to pronounce it. Is the tree of life in the movie Avatar. And as she's singing it, she's blue. She looks like the Hindu god, literally. And the avatar comes from the Hindu religion, which is like reincarnation and all this other stuff. So I'm like, this is a cult practice right in front of us. People are enjoying it, spending their money on it, and they have no idea what they're actually being presented, right?
Right.
They're just seeing it as what we call today as entertainment. No one's seeing this.
Right. That's how important cultural creation is, or cultural engineering. Like, they can do that stuff. For people who don't know, the Lord of the Air references Ephesians 2, where Paul wrote, according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit who is now at work in the sons of disobedience. So it's like perfect for Crowley. So the prince or power of the air, people is identified as Satan.
Yeah.
So it's all biblical. Yeah.
It's wild, man, really how normalized it is today. And you know what? That's another thing that I found about Animal Kingdom is on the Tree of Life, which is the biggest attraction that the park has. It's this gigantic tree that's about 150 feet to 200 feet tall. It's probably 80 to 100 feet wide. It's gigantic, man.
Wow.
It's millions of dollars of architecture. And on there, you have a bunch of animals that are kind of molded into the tree, carved into the tree, right? Now, there's different sizes with it, which to me resembles authority. And at the top of the tree, which is the biggest animal on the tree, is an owl, and it's at the top.
Wow. Makes perfect sense. So people are like just completely absorbing that. Wow.
Yeah,
That's
they're
crazy.
taking pictures in front of it. They're smiling. They have no idea that this could be like Moloch worship in some sort of way. And, plus, it's the tree of life, which is just a Gnostic view, in my opinion, resembling what it truly stands for, right? With the owl, Moloch, Baal, also the Avatar ride with the tree of life,
Kabbalah is the
Alos.
saint seen as the tree of life, the Kabbalah, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you
Wow.
think these so I know we talked that, it's most likely Lucifer. Um and so Crowley had an interaction with Lamb, right?
Correct. Right.
This was an entity that he actually sketched a drawing of what they look like. What do you think, these entities are? Do you think there's multiple
Demons.
different
Yeah.
kinds?
I think they're
Yeah,
demons
yeah,
in
no
the
doubt.
Christian tradition. These aliens are demons. So that's what like people are talking. You look at some of these people who are promoting the UFO culture, it'll scare you because they are very knowledgeable about the occult. Some are super knowledgeable, and in my opinion, high occultists like Crowley. And so they promoted this kind of thing as like, oh, the aliens here. When you like, there's other really good researchers. I can't remember his name now, but he said that the experience these people have with aliens is the same experience people had with demons for centuries. And so they've just kind of reformed it because they're afraid of them. Like it's all fear. And like even like sleep paralysis and stuff like that. People say the name of Jesus and the sleep paralysis stops. Like these are what demons are doing, responding even to Christ in the Old Testament 2,000 years ago. So uh, I think the Lamb incident is very interesting in the greater context of Crowley's contact with other worldly entities. Aiwass is just one, and these are different workings or rituals. A working, what he called, is like a ritual spread out over time, like 7 days or 14 days, where he would do rituals all day or certain parts of the day with a goal and purpose. And this ritual that he was doing in New York City, in Manhattan of all places, was called the Alamantra working. And the demon that showed up, or the entity, is Lamb, and he drew a picture of it. And it's in his Equinox, which is his encyclopedia, the blue Equinox specifically. And it's a gray alien. I mean, it's just no question about it. It's the same kind of big-headed, weird-eyed alien
Right,
that they
right.
talk about today.
You know what I found interesting is I've been diving and researching what's called the Raelian cult. I don't know if you're familiar with
I'm
them.
very familiar with it.
So one thing that caught my mind when I was, building a whole outline for the research is they told Rael, which was Claude Vorilhon, the guy that had this connection with these entities at the time. They said, "We do not, and we command you not to draw what we look like." And it made me think, I was like, oh, wow, that's because Crowley drew it. And then we all got the idea of what they look like. And they look like what we know as the gray alien today. And we can now have the discernment to spot and to recognize who they are, who they work for.
It's, what's interesting is almost like no major ufologist mentions the gray alien of Crowley. And I think that's a tell. So I think that's what like ties into what you just said. Like it comes from the Christian ideas. It's almost never mentioned by the occultists either. And you have to ask yourself the question, why? Why is it not brought out by them? Why is it other people or researchers or, alternate media people talking about that? Because Christians bring it up all the time. They're very interested in that. But these occultists, like you can see these major occultists who are out there, they never mention it, at least in public. So for me, they're clearly deliberately occulting that picture of Crowley. This is just one of the entities that Crowley talked to. Aiwass, there was the magician, the wizard, Corazon he supposedly had contact with, among other. So he was always trying to contact these discarnate entities to gain knowledge or insight or something, or power. So this is just one of this long list of things that he supposedly, like one of the reasons why he went all the way to Sicily and started his magical fraternity at Cefalu is because of like readings that he had through this entity called the Wizard.
Yeah, it's wild, man.
Yeah.
It's so wild.
So he was making decisions based upon like what he thought something told him or where to go and do all this stuff.
Right. And I think maybe that's why a lot of these celebrities, you know, put him on such a pedestal, because he had these connections with these entities. Maybe they looked at him as they knew him as a magi, right? Especially with him and his involvement with Jack Parsons and, Hubbard, the things that they were getting into. Could you talk to us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Like he had followers all around the world, and he said his number one follower in the world was Jack Parsons, who founded JPL, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. So Parsons was always kind of an occultist who had found Crowley, and they had a lot of extensive writing back and forth. And Parsons started the Agape Lodge in Pasadena, and he was part of what was called the Suicide Squad because they were also researching jet propulsion, how to make a jet. This is like the beginning of rocketry. So moving from a, rotating engine to something that burns fast and shoots out missiles. And they would do it in the Arroyo there in Pasadena. And he was with a couple other people, Foreman and Molina. And we'll come back to Molina because he's interesting. But he also was an occultist at the same time. He would recite Crowley's Hymn to Pan during launches and stuff. There's all kinds of pictures of him in there. He's actually making Masonic. He's standing in a Masonic fashion, which is you square your feet like this, and it's like a symbol to other Masons, like, hey, I'm part of the Masonic fraternity. But he was notoriously at his lodge was L. Ron Hubbard, and this is post World War II, or maybe it's it's around that time. But they would do workings together. One of the workings was called the Babalon working with the intent. It's like this working I just mentioned with Crowley. They did it over time in the desert, and the intent was to promote this magical entity, Lady Babalon, which is a representation of this magical change they wanted to make in the world. And so Parsons then ends up dying he actually had a very lengthy FBI file, which somebody FOIA'd, got a Freedom of Information Act about it. It showed a lot of his interesting background and his research. He actually was in Redondo Beach for a minute, but he mysteriously died in an accident, and then Hubbard went on to start Scientology, and had that kind of strange career, but always integrated a lot of Crowley's ideas into Scientology, believe it or not. And his son kind of exposed that he was really a kind of a practicing magus or a magician with very expansive ambitions like Crowley. I think he actually realized Crowley's ambitions more than Crowley himself. But it's a very well, I think Love and Rockets, there's a book about Parsons, and it's really interesting. But then one of the interesting things about the Suicide Squad, the JPL grew into this huge rocketry thing. And there's this huge kind of like campus. It's almost like a college campus. So what he was involved in at a very, beginning stages grew onto something huge. But Foreman and Molina, one of the interesting things about Molina is that his son, Molina's son, married Robert Maxwell's daughter. So there's a weird tie-in between the Suicide Squad and Parsons and kind of modern cultural stuff in the United States. I think they live in New Mexico.
Yeah, yeah. It wasn't Marjorie Cameron also kind of the female that was involved in all these rituals?
Yeah. She was supposedly the one that showed up after this Babalon working, and they called her Lady Babalon, and she became involved with Parsons. And then she became close friends with Kenneth Anger, who I mentioned earlier. There's like drawings of her. She was an artist, and she was kind of a muse for Anger in a way. So she was in some of his films. She was actually in a film with Dennis Hopper, believe it or not. It's called Night Tide, so you can watch that. So these are kind of like occult history, stuff, these weird connections. But Anger really networked with a lot of really interesting people. And Hopper was one of them. Another's Alejandro, I can't remember his last name. And also the director of performance. So like all these there's pictures of all these guys together. And they're all occultists, I think. I think Hopper was too.
Yeah, the crazy thing about Marjorie, and I don't know how legit this is. Wanted to get your opinion on it, but there's a picture that she drew of her having intercourse with an alien. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, I am. I've seen
And
that
that
picture.
that alien reminds me of the movie. I forget what movie it is, but it has oh, what's the name? What's the guy that plays John Wick?
Keanu Reeves?
Keanu Reeves, right? So you know the movie that he's in where he is the alien in a human form. Let me see.
I don't know offhand.
Let me see. So Keanu Reeves alien movie. I gotta look this up. Okay. Well, this is what the alien looks like, by the way, in the drawing. If you type in just Google Keanu Reeves alien movie and you go to images, you'll see the image of the graphite pretty much, look of the alien with, kind of got like an Oculus beam coming out of his head and stuff like that. Um, which is very interesting because I think this graphene buildup of an alien may have something to do with what we read in Revelation 13, known as the image of the beast. I'm not sure if this is something that they may be working on behind the scenes, but it's the movie called The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Right. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, because when I look at that drawing of that alien and then that, it kind of looks similar. It's not, it's just my opinion, but um, there's
Yeah,
something there, man. There's a connection with the disembodied world and ours, and they
I
use
think
the
so.
occult to really try and speak to these things, or maybe to do their agenda. You know?
I think you're right. I think that they like if these people are like Crowley, they're trying to gain, they're enhancing their consciousness through these discarnate entities. And it's kind of like an old magical occult trope. Like I'm trying to contact Satan to get influence or whatever. Like it's pretty scary when you think about it. That other people could be doing that in addition to Crowley. But there's a famous picture of one of the other connections to Crowley is Alfred Kinsey, right? The guy who like was a total fraud, but he was interested in Crowley and went with Kenneth Anger to kind of find Crowley's diary. And then Kinsey would go on like Sex and the Human Male, which was all financed by the Rockefeller family. So very strange things about them. But Kinsey and Donald Campbell was another guy. That was the guy who directed Performance. Literally sat on Crowley's knee. Um, just incredible stuff like Alejandro. Oh, what's his name? It's can't remember his. I can't. I can remember his name. Hopper, Anger. But yeah, it's just and these guys are all over the culture. It's really
Yeah.
incredible.
So I know you mentioned earlier in the show, and I did want to circle back to it, but 9/11 and the occult connection that is behind it. This is a subject that people, again, this is all prayers and love out to the families that were involved in this whole entire situation. But you can't hide from the fact that with the architecture and with what is there now, right? There's the black cubes that are there now. There's so much occult symbolism wrapped around that 9/11 event. Um,
Right.
do you think it seemed to be a ritual of any?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it was ritualized. I think it
Right.
was ritualized. So I think that even the day like Bush Jr.'s in Florida, there's weird things going on with this meeting, weird calls to the kids. They like bow down and bow back up like it's all ceremonial magic. And then the day itself, like all the numbers and numerology and the planes and the sequences, it's all thought out. So I think that there's kind of a secret hand behind that. And the bushes are right there in the middle of
Yeah, yeah, it's wild. I mean, just the twin towers too could possibly represent the two pillars of Freemasonry,
it.
maybe.
Boaz Yachin, they're in 11. It's in 11. It's an
Oh, an 11,
ideogram.
yeah.
Yeah. It's two ones. They're 110 stories tall. So it's an 11. They literally have like the trident of the devil going up the whole side of each one of the towers, and the trident is a known symbol of rebellion, like storming heaven, like the sons of disobedience. I mean, the whole place is built on like weird axes. Like you have the square there, you've got the circle, you have like names of temples, like that circular object, that great brass object. It's named like it has like an occult name. It's not. It's a name of a temple. It has like it's the great spherical caryatid, and a caryatid is a statue that holds up a temple. So it's not, and it's just not, it's not built as some random thing. It's built with and it's totally. They called those buildings David and after the Rockefeller brothers, David and Nelson after the Rockefeller brothers, because it was all financed by the Rockefeller family.
Right. It's so wild, man. The world we live in, it's really nuts. But
And there's David. You can follow up David Rockefeller. He's at, well, what a thought. He just happens to be in Manhattan at the time of 9/11. So he's watching the buildings named after him and watching them fall down. What a coincidence.
Right. Jeez, dude. Yeah. It's my gosh, man.
That's what you have
wild
to figure out is who's at 9/11, who's there watching the event, but not dead. That's the tell.
Yeah.
That's the tell.
No doubt, man. No doubt. Because it seems like, well, we know the Bush family has been speaking of a new world order for, I mean, the longest time. They're the kind of ones that put that term out there from a political stance. What's your idea?
I mean, Biden used to do it. And one of the things that's very important to remember is George Bush's famous New World Order speech was, when was it? September 11th, 1990, 11 years to the date of 9/11. It's not a mistake.
Right. Everything's done with purpose, you know.
If that's your religion, if you're Christian, you celebrate Easter, you celebrate all these important dates. I mean, it depends on what part of faith, but holy days, saint days, Christmas. So if you're an occultist, why wouldn't you do the same thing? Why wouldn't you structure your life on different organizing principles?
True, man. That's a good point. What's your thoughts on the New World Order?
Well, it's real. It's an elite thing. It's not for the standard people. It's not for working class people, but for people who are interested in power and maintaining their lifestyle or whatever. It's a way of structuring the world for, just like George Bush says, for ourselves and future generations. When he's saying that, he's saying it to the people inside Congress. He's not saying it to all the Americans. So the New World Order really is an elite kind of an organizing principle. It's already taking place. I mean, you have to see it, different iterations or different layouts, but I mean, all the way certainly from post-World War II to the present is this underground kind of liminal concept of reforming the world in their image. And that's what they're doing. And COVID is part of it. All these wars in the Middle East is this overarching broad view. Like the agenda is to topple Russia. So that's why there's this war that started. There's nobody in the United States cares about this thing, but the elites do in DC, and the people who are going to profit off it are the kind of what Putin calls literal vampires. Like he literally calls them vampires, and they're right. I mean, we're demon possessed as a country. It's just like the Christians have kind of lost their salt because they put up with all these evil people for generations. And I'm directly saying this to the Christian leadership, is that you literally had like Satanists running your country and you said nothing about it. So you're like they're false leaders. They're a total joke. I mean, in my opinion, like I'm watching these occultists, like, why aren't you saying anything? I actually have talked to like Christian leaders who think my ideas they just can't, they're not palatable. They're not Christian. I'm like, you claim to have discernment. Can't you put it together? Anyway.
No, I agree with you.
The New World Order is real, and it's occulted, and it's overarching, and the amount of suffering they've caused is it's barely constant. It's immeasurable, and it's part of the kind of propaganda, New World Order, MK Ultra, collective psychic driving is all part of it. So there's all these components, financial, cultural, and it all goes back to Satanism and the sons of disobedience and the war against God and Christ.
Right, man. I know. So you mentioned MK Ultra. It's something I cover a lot on the show. Um, I feel like it's something that's really influencing culture today. What how does MK Ultra look like now from when it first started, you know, in the 30s, 40s, and 50s time?
It's just become more sophisticated and more technically astute. So I think that from the beginnings of that research, which was pre-war, through the war, and then the application of it, it's just become more and more sophisticated. So you're clearly seeing people influenced through websites, Reddit or Discord, or even secret servers or things like that. And they're being, there's a dark persuasion going on in some of these young kids. They don't understand it. And it's interesting. It comes all the way up to the present because this kid who was one of the many Trump assassins, one that we know of is Nikita Kasap in Minnesota, who literally killed his own parents and was saying order of nine angle terms like Niner. But he was influenced from somebody from Ukraine, which is really just a rump state for the U.S., to like plot to kill, Trump. And and then you see this radical personality change over a year or two. Like, it's very strange. So I think that they've gotten sophisticated enough where they don't really have to have a handler like what you see in the 60s assassins or in Manchurian Candidate. So it's something now you can just have like an online handler. And you kind of see some of the stuff with Sirhan, the Radio Man. So I think it's just an advance. And now you've got voice to skull. I think they've perfected the techniques and to make it undetectable. So I think
agree.
it's a very scary time to be in. Yeah. You got to
Right.
really protect your kids. Usually suggestibility is youth. That's why a lot of the like patsies are like 20, 22, 24 is because they're just more suggestible. And when you're older, you're not as suggestible. So these young kids have to be protected. They shouldn't be online. If you have a kid who's a teenager and he's at theater or sports or chess club or outside bicycling, thank God. Like, that's what he should be doing, is actually touching grass and staying offline, because the common denominator of all these guys is just being online for hours.
Yeah, I really wonder if they're sending some sort of frequencies through visuals rather than sound, right? Through ELF, LLF, whatever, these low frequency waves. But I'm wondering if now they've gotten so sophisticated to the point to where we can watch things on social media, we can watch things on YouTube, and they're kind of sending these things, optically to where our brain is kind of receiving it, but we don't see it or pick it up or recognize it. But
I think
it puts little ideas,
sure.
you
I
know.
think you're in a hypnotized state if you're watching TV, at least the conventional corporate media or whatever. The blinking and stuff that's going on, it's all intentional, and then becomes suggestive. And then, like, hey, buy this Pfizer product. You want to be healthy? Go get your shot. This may cause like tumor to erupt out of the center of your forehead, but go. And then, like, you've lost your critical thinking component. Like, man, maybe this shot is going to do it. Maybe I just sit on my ass and not go get exercise and eat this hot dog. Instead, I'll take this pill. Like, how would somebody believe that? Like, go outside, get some exercise, lose some weight. I mean, I think you have to chalk up some of these decisions that collectively are made by our society are because of mind control.
Absolutely, man.
Why are we spending $300 billion in Ukraine? It's the stupidest thing ever. It's so dumb. You cannot even, it's looking into a void that doesn't have a bottom. And anything that surrounds it that you believe that Putin's a vampire and he drinks baby blood, or that border means anything to you as the United States, or that the Ukrainians are being oppressed. If you believe any of that, you're mind controlled. You're also stupid that this matters. Like, you have $300 billion in tax dollars over there when your country's falling apart. You have to chalk it up to something much more dark propaganda. Like,
Right.
so MK Ultra is here. Like, the original thing when when Dulles started MK Ultra, he literally laid out the whole idea was for collective and individual application. So people are like, well, I can just have this one guy. No, he's thinking about the whole society, how to manipulate the whole society. And if you talk about 9/11, I think you have to talk about MK Ultra and its effect on people, the national traumatization intentionally made over and over. Watch the buildings fall over and over, and people falling out of buildings. It's all intentional. They're driving it into your brain, and then it's like, well, Iraq did it, and people are like, oh yeah, you know that 50% of the American population literally believed at one point that Saddam Hussein did 9/11.
Wow.
Imagine the power.
I'm not surprised.
Imagine the power behind that. The Wizard of Oz behind the scenes, just cackling and laughing at it. He could get 50 or 75 million people to literally believe in their thought that Saddam Hussein was behind 9/11. Go look up that fact. You just grok it. It's really a real fact. And like, people don't contextualize that. They're like, oh, well, that's weird. No, it's amazing. They can just make that up and plant that into the brains of millions and millions of people. It's safe and effective, man. That's what's going on today. They just signed some deal with Pfizer. They're murdering people through the shots. They're destroying lives after life after life after life. Early death, cancer, neurological problems. And they're still doing it. And they're still like, people are like, MAGA, Trump, man, he's saving me. No, he's not. He's a part of the depopulation agenda. That's part of the New World Order too. So the New World Order is ugly. It's bad. It's bad. When somebody says New World Order, that equals bad. So snap out of it. Snap out of the mind control. Come into the real world, people. Especially Christians. A lot of the Christian pastors are they're horrible. They're just a total joke. If they don't talk about this, the New World Order or Satanism or Crowley or numerology, they are, to me, they're blind guides, just like Christ talked about. And there's a lot of them out there making money. Joel Osteen. These are I can't. How can they escape damnation?
Right.
Stephen, how can they? I'm asking you, really, how can they escape damnation?
I don't, that's the thing. I think I think Satan has done a really good job at creating churches like this, or at least infiltrating some of these churches. And who knows if some of these people are actual occultists running these churches? Who knows if they're actually part of secret societies, or they're industry plants, or they're Freemasons or whatever. And they're totally demoralized to, the real Christianity and what the Bible talks about. But I'm thinking that this is why we see in the New Testament, the apostasy, the great falling away, and then the man of sin will be revealed. Something has to happen to where the church, the believers, the body of Christ gets demoralized and believes in a lie. There's something is going to happen here. And Christianity is becoming so sensationalized. It's becoming so contemporary. It's becoming so worldly that that's why they don't have the discernment to see the things that me and you see, or to even maybe open up a book and to research it, because they look at it and they go, that they can't see that this is how the world is. They're demoralized. You could take them in front of a concentration camp and go, hey, look, concentration camp. And they'll look at you with a fluoride stare and they go, no, that's not what that is. It's like what Yuri Bizmenov, talks about, right? That the ex-KGB, specialist from Russia, how to really infect and to control a nation. This is what you have to do. But it all starts from even higher than governments. It all comes from higher than the bankers. It comes from the top of that unfinished pyramid, that all-seeing eye. This is the architect of this world that is, creating these things and establishing them, these things for what they are, because he's building a new world order. He needs to inherit this world when because I talked about this on a previous show. Like, Satan's working on getting this world prepped. So when he comes here as Antichrist, all he has to do is take the throne. If he was to come here and to build an empire, the people would recognize it and see it and call out that that's Antichrist. He's using the meta narrative of the Hegelian dialectic to have the people build it to usher him in, and he will just come and inherit it, if that makes any sense. And it'll be too
100%.
late. It'll be too
Right.
late for the people to go, oh no, what have we done? Let's hit the rewind button. It's set in place. It's done. Good job.
You're seeing it today. Like there's literally 2 million people dead in Ukraine now, at least 2 million Ukrainians. They filled all of the cemeteries, and it's barely not in the consciousness of people. Like this is a grave loss. Tens of millions of people died with this shot rollout. This is a grave loss. Why aren't people talking about that? It's like their brains get switched off, like, hey, what's going on? There's Gaza. There's 500,000 dead people in Gaza so far. This is a global thing. This is the New World Order. If you look at the broad, you have to take a wide angle view and conceive of what's going on is happening, and then you can throw in so much. Oh, it's just, you're right. It's the
Yeah.
lead up to something else.
Yeah. And I think with all the things that we see, uh, with that is initiating the progression of moving forward to this new world order. It's all being done because I think that these people that are involved in the new world order, these elites, elites, right, that they they are trying to accomplish the agenda that they're told by these entities, if that makes any sense. Because when you look and you compare it with, alien cult leaders, right, who call themselves prophets and messiahs and all this other kind of stuff. They're the messengers, right, relaying the information to us here, humans on Earth. Well, when I've been researching the Raelian cult, in order for the extraterrestrials, the Elohim, whatever you want to call them, there's multiple different names, just like the mythos of every culture in our history. There's different names for these things, but they're still the same council, if that makes any sense. They want a utopia to be built here before their arrival. And so I think that's why we're seeing a push for the transhumanism agenda, the technocracy, the surveillance. I think they're trying to create a utopia for this world, but they want the people to be demoralized to it, to see it as something that's good, something that will bring peace and safety, security to the world, um, and all of that. I think that's what it's all kind of wrapped around. Sorry for me going off, but
No, but I think you're right. This is the whole UFO agenda, is the hidden alien entity agenda, which is like the demonic agenda. So it's just a cover for it, which is why all these guys are occultists. Whitley Strieber, all that numerology I was talking about, he knows all that stuff. So I think that that's like the soft, unveiling, is that this is actually, we're going to call them UFOs now. And then like, hey, by the way, these are evil entities and these are the fallen ones who were kicked out of heaven or something.
right,
Um,
right.
and then you can go look at Whitley Strieber. Like this guy is like, the four brothers. There was David Nelson, who was involved in MK Ultra at the very beginning, 1950. He knew a lot about that stuff before he died, strangely. I think it's David. The one of them went to, I can't remember his name, but he went to Arkansas and supposedly was the illegitimate son of him was Bill Clinton, which makes perfect sense. But Lawrence was kind of like the artsy, intelligent one, and he was very much involved in the culture creation. So he gave money away, Esalen and all kinds of stuff. But there's pictures of him with like Whitley Strieber that, I mean, to me, and immediately that's like, this is a discrediting that Whitley would hang out with a Rockefeller and take money. It's like, this is like they're financing Kinsey. Elites finance, like the Getty family financed Kenneth Anger. Kenneth Anger said all he had to do was call the Getty brother, who did all kinds of strange, rich, elite guy, oil money, did rebirthing rituals in freaking tombs, and this guy he was Getty Jr. Um, Kenneth Anger would say, "Hey, I just need an international flight to get to Europe," and paid for and gone. So these
Wow.
elites, like Crowley was, like I said early at the beginning of this, the priest to the princes. A lot of these top level people have some kind of like, they may not be in direct contact with entities, but they have some kind of like house occultist who helps them out. And you see that through even the guy who made the seal on the dollar bill. I think he was the vice president under um, Roosevelt, but he had this kind of occultist who was like interested in the same stuff Crowley was. He was I can't remember his name, but like he was an occultist. Like he became the Department of Education, but like these got integrated into the dollar bill. Like if you go and look at these people, there's somebody flowing around. Then this guy, like the modern version, is this guy Damien Eccles, who was the West Memphis Three. Look at all his celebrity adherents. Johnny Depp. These huge names. Like Johnny Depp is huge. What's he doing tinkering around with this guy from Arkansas? How does this make sense?
Right.
The only way you can make sense is through kind of an occult lens.
Yeah, man. So in your books, you also talk about something called the Order of the Nine Angles. What is that?
It's just one of these kind of newer kind of things. So you had all these things branch out. There's all kinds of different groups and many OTO, like I mentioned earlier. But then you kind of go into the 60s and you have the Church of Saint Levay, you have the Temple of Set of Aquino, you have followers of Crowley maintaining the OTO. And then a kind of new group kind of grew up that was satanic, but saw itself differently. And it came out of the UK, and it's called the Order of Nine Angles. And really started out kind of putting out small pamphlets and sending them out, and really underground, like P.O. boxes and things like that. But they were starting to build a corpus of ideas. And they actually have a Tree of Life. They actually have the Tree of Life Septenary Way. It's a seven-step thing up. The founder didn't believe he wanted to have any kind of Nazarene, what he called Nazarene involvement in his cult. So that meant the Kabbalah, which was supposedly Jewish, wasn't involved, or anything from Christ, like totally anti-Christian. But he used the kind of Yggdrasil or Tree of Life structure, septenary way. What sets the Order of Nine Angles, in addition to like contacting dark gods, the 21 dark gods, who all have symbols within the organization? Level 3 on the septenary way is you select an offer or a sacrifice and kill somebody. So integrated into their doctrine, which is now a global thing. They've infiltrated Russia. They're all over the place in small little cells, small little kind of like almost terror cells that they call Nexions. Which, I mean, they have kind of like spiritual worldview, because they believe in other dimensions. And they contact entities through those dimensions, through rituals and stuff. But this whole offer thing that distinguishes them, and you can read my book, they like argue with these other occultists. Like there's literal, like Dave Myatt is the guy who started it, supposedly. There's a lot of kind of murkiness, deliberate murkiness in this group. Like they intentionally hide things, but there's writing between Michael Aquino and Myatt saying you guys are fake, and because we actually write in our doctrines we kill people, and you guys just hide it, but we actually made it part of our like core beliefs. And it's slow because of the internet and communications. This really underground group kind of spread out all over the world. So these Nexians, there's some in Canada, New York, hidden ones, Texas, supposedly. And it kind of, these ideas, it's very sophisticated, may have some intel background. Myatt, strangely, has never been in jail, which is kind of a tell. Like, wow, you haven't been busted for any of this stuff, but you're writing about it. Like, why aren't you in jail? Like, are you doing this? But the ideas disseminated all throughout the world and kind of filtered up and came through the far right globally. And so kind of like this new Nazism, the new neo-Nazism, and this order is kind of a neo-Nazi order. Like they love Hitler. They actually do their time from the birth of Hitler in 1889. So it's like Era Vulgaris is like the Christian world. So everything's inverted as usual with the occult. But they seed it, and then there's all kinds of murders associated with people who are in the Order of Nine Angles. And I just mentioned one earlier, which is Nikita Kasap. That was this year. He thought he was part of a 10-man murder squad, and that's what they led him on to believe. And they were having him move around. He was going to end up in Ukraine. So they've influenced the culture in strange ways that people don't perceive. Ed Sheeran's song "Bad Habits" is a symbolic representation of Order of Nine Angles
Oh, wow.
ideology. There's no question about it. This song, Bad Habits, is like 500 million views on YouTube alone. So it's like a global thing. Like it's huge. Ed Sheeran's huge. Um, I think whoever's behind, it's like who knows who he's talking to, what kind of high level occultist is behind him. I doubt it's him, is my idea, but somebody put him up to be a front man. It's vampirism, mundanes. The view of other people who aren't of the cult is almost like you're a zombie, you're a mundane, and you can be harvested almost like a cow. That was kind of Crowley's idea too. He wasn't an egalitarian at all. He thought people were cattle and should be sheared and used for their mutton. Like he had just a horrible inversion of like Christian ethos, Christian ideas. But anyway, the Order of Nine Angles it just keeps popping up in the news. And it's more if some of the ideas have come into like the 764 group, which is very murky underground, but it's involved in pedophilia, CSAM, which is a new term, child sexual abuse material, manufacturing, online abuse. And a lot of people, there's just constant arrests taking place of these guys who are online, like they go onto Roblox or Fortnite and lure young kids and like, hey, I'm your buddy. Can you come over to my Discord chat and we can talk? And then we go to the Discord and then they go to Telegram or something even more secretive and they get groomed and really horrible, horrible stuff. And it's actually come to the attention of the law enforcement. So like federal law enforcement is supposedly involved and interested in they are prosecuting these cases. So it's good for them, but it all kind of ties back. 7-6 goes back to the Order of Nine Angles and goes back to Maya. It's a kind of a new, kind of a cult phenomenon. It wasn't around, 30, 40 years ago.
Oh, wow. 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 There's a lot to it, man.
Oh,
I mean,
a lot. Yeah.
that's probably
I've
just
done a
the
lot.
surface.
Yeah. I've done a lot of interviews on that on my podcast, William Ramsey Investigates. So you can check all those out. I've interviewed a lot of other researchers. I think my book is really the best. The book, the Global Death Cult book, The Order of Nine Angles, Adam Waffen, and the Slaughter of the Innocents, is my number one selling book to this day. Like it outsells all my other books. Like it's still interesting because it's still
Nice.
relevant, and I think it's the best primer out there. I don't think anybody else has really done a good job. They see it because it's neo-Nazi. It's seen kind of like the Jewish NGOs and the stuff like that really key into part of it. They see it as kind of like, okay, this Nazi's bad, which is good, but I don't think they cover a lot of the abuse and stuff like that, or get into the details of the ideology as much as I did. So
Right. Now, do you mention Manchurian Candidates in that book as well?
no. My
Okay.
Manchurian Candidate work is really just of this year. It kind of came out of because of all the assassinations and all the assassins and stuff and killers that are publicly killing. But it kind of came out of my MK Ultra research and my look into Catcher in the Rye.
Gotcha. So with today, it seems like there's a lot of violence on the table. There's a lot of shootings around the entire nation. And I think this really popped off. It's been something since the Sandy Hook issue, right? But I think what really changed the game, what made it more popular was that shooting that happened in Denver at the movie theater. And then it seemed like after that, things just kind of started escalating.
Was that the Holmes shooting?
I think so. That was during I think it was the Batman movie or something. Can't remember exactly.
That was the Batman, yeah.
What's funny too is before that happened, Lil Wayne actually released a music video that showed 13 skeletons sitting in. I think there was 13 people that were murdered. But the Lil Wayne music video kind of showed conspiratorial symbolism that maybe there's a connection there. Again, I'm not dogmatic on that, but with these shootings that are taking place, what are your conclusions with what's going on behind all this?
Well, it's hard to place them all together. Like there is an increase of something going on. Why it's happening is a good question. There's a lot of trans people involved in violence, public violence now. They had this one recently his name was Justin Pressman or whatever it was, Robin Westman. So there's a lot of suspicious characters with suspicious backgrounds. A lot of these are kind of mysterious, like Luigi Mangione, who's in court, and Ruth, who literally tried to stab himself, who was supposedly one of the Trump shooters. Nikita Kasab. We don't know much about Crooks. What's his motivation? Why is this happening? Like, this is an enigma, a public enigma, and why don't we know more about these people? So I think that there's like a darker thing involved, at least in some of them. I don't have a lot of proof in all of them, but like they are undergoing personality changes. Like, this is very strange, and it's not like private violence. So it's not like I'm going to go home and shoot a family member. They're like going out to publicly do stuff in public, and so uh, I think it requires a lot of investigation. I've been doing that, so I've been trying to show people through like this Manchurian Candidate film in 1962 is kind of an exemplar of kind of some of the techniques that are available at altering and manipulating human behavior. And I think certainly there was a lot of people in the 60s who were manipulated. And then you kind of have to wonder how many of these people of this day have been manipulated. Because there were like weird ones on January 1st. There was Jabbar who drove over a lot of people on Bourbon Street in New Orleans. And Livelsberger, who drove his like Tesla truck to Trump Tower, which is a huge golden, monolith, and blew that up January 1st too. Weird things, connections to military bases. Like gets weird. So there's weird things going on, and I think that there's a hidden hand involved or handler involved in a lot of these cases, if not all of them.
Yeah, yeah. The Manchurian Candidate thing. Have you seen the Denzel Washington movie?
Yeah, I've watched both of them.
Yeah, I mean they're real good. Plus, Denzel is just one of the best actors of all time.
I didn't care for the second one. The 2004 version, I think, was not as clever and kind of like didn't get into some of the depth that the 1962 one did because they were true to the book. I think they were more true to the book. I think that the 2004 wasn't true at all. And it didn't have the kind of panache, in my opinion. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Do you think that this is still a part of, because I think the occult is a part of it. I think that there's an occult connection with the idea of the Manchurian Candidates, at least with maybe disconnecting or disassociating someone's consciousness or their agency of their consciousness, and now they're kind of just some sort of rogue robot or something, or they fulfill their programming, if that makes any sense. Maybe the idea of the Bourne Supremacy or the Bourne Identity. I'm sorry, the Bourne Identity movies, right? It's kind of like he was disassociated from his identity, and he didn't realize that he was actually going through an MK Ultra experiment, and he was a part of a CIA operation to go out and to be these people that take people out all over around the world. Do you think that there's a plan to put technology into people so that now all they have to do is kind of flip a switch?
And, I'm sure there is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the Internet of Bodies and all these things are really real. And I think that was part of the component of COVID was they were injecting people with stuff. And they've been injecting us like lab rats for a long time through food and stuff. And some of these drugs, like you cannot, like you pick up a pharmaceutical pill and you think that's all that's in there. No, they're adding graphene to some of these things. So that's like a radio wave capture kind of device. It's not believable, but yeah, I think that that's the ultimate aim is just like the mark of the beast is put something around your head or like, a device. Like they always like present this like as this positive thing as having some kind of technology in your brain, like Elon Musk's thing. But what if somebody evil comes along? That's the whole thing is like, what's the evil application of this? Like, so.
Well, it's like you said, they push things in the name of something else, which is completely different than the true purpose of why they're
doing that all the time. So like, hey, we're giving 70 billion to Pfizer. It's really, no, they're depopulating people. It's the
Yes.
depopulation agenda. That's the whole goal. So I think that eventually it'll almost be biblical. Like, who's going to take the mark? You're going to take the mark. It's for your own good. This is going to save your life. They're going to
Right.
come up with some rationale that's supposedly good for you, and people will be like, no, and then you're going to, like, the Bible will be fulfilled. That's one of the weird things about the occultists, especially Crowley. Like, he was trying to fulfill the Bible, but the bad sides of it. Like, he didn't care. Like, yeah, well, let's do it,
Exactly.
So these people are like, some people read 1984 and go, hey, this is a blueprint, guys. They're not saying it as a warning. Like, I want to be O'Neill in room 101 with these people. There's a cult. It's interesting you make the comment like Manchurian and occult, because Condon integrated occultism into his book, occult numerology and hypnotism and all that stuff. So, like, in the way that it's presented, the occultism is presented, the 11s are presented in the film, he's kind of implying that the process is kind of like magic or
Yeah.
the occult. So you can see there's sequences where the main character, played by Lawrence Harvey, who plays Raymond Shaw, where like there's like, oh, and 11, I haven't put up with this guy for 11 long years. Then he drops the Queen of Diamonds, and then he goes into a trance. So like, that's like almost the magic. So it's like the occulted magic trick where nobody else knows that this person's consciousness has shifted to in a severe way.
Yeah. And I think that's a big part. And I've talked about it plenty of times on this show. I've been on many other shows talking about what my idea, well, it's not my idea. I have a lot of patents. I have a lot of documents that I've searched and that I've collected that really shows what they're pushing with the digital ID. But the digital ID is just, the way to get us to sign off on this idea, to be accepted into society. We saw the same idea with the things that happened in 2020, right? They used a high impactful event to influence the emotions of the people, so then they don't rationally or critically think about what it is the people in charge are doing and their agenda and their purpose behind it, but it just gets done, right? And I think that's a part of their plan. But I think the digital ID will be the way to push technology being integrated in the body. We've seen Bill Gates talk about the cell phone era ending, and an electronic tattoo is now rising, kind of, which will take place probably in 2030. At least from my research, that's what the Nokia CEO said back 5 years ago in Geneva, Switzerland, at the Davos group. So I think they're wanting to migrate technology to the next step, which will be wearables. We see RFK talking about that. But I think from wearables, they really want to get it in your body. And from some insight reports from the World Economic Forum, they say this. But my whole, just to summarize that up, I think they want to put technology in your body through the idea in the name of digital identity. So we can have something that really authenticates who we are, because maybe there will be cyber attacks, right? Someday in the future, which will DDoS us from everything, and our identities are stolen. So now we really need this digital ID. But once this technology gets into our body, it's like if we were to put Siri in our head. I don't have agency over Siri anymore once it's a part of me. I say that because I just don't know what Siri can do. There's nothing for me to regulate it. But if Siri is outside of my body in a cell phone, I have agency over Siri. Right. I tell it what to do. I have authority over it. So I think that's one thing that it contributes to this idea of the mark of the beast. Why does the image of the beast cause everyone to get it in order to buy and sell? I think it's because not only is that something that forces you to getting it, because survival is based off of buying and selling, but now you become linked into the hive mind of that image of the beast, where I think you can get disassociated from your consciousness, just like the worker bees do when the queen sends out a pheromone. And I think that's because this Antichrist figure will want to be like God, having control and influence over your life whenever he chooses to do so. In similar ways how the Holy Spirit does, right? Where the Holy Spirit is talking to you on a daily. It's kind of convicting you. It's helping you move throughout your life with your decision making. And I think that's like the overall goal, um, who knows? Maybe it's 20, 30 years down the road. Maybe it's 2 lifetimes.
They're planning it. Here's the thing, Stephen. They're planning it. Like, have you seen the 6G documents and stuff like that? Like, you're never going
No.
to be, you're going to be in an omnipresent AI world, and you're never going to get out of it. So the only people are going to be fighting to get away from technology. They're going to be like, we got to go, to the national park or something like that, so I can feel free. Because if once they put that in your body, you're never getting out of that consciousness. And you're
Right.
absolutely right.
And
so
I think
that's the plan.
I think the other part,
Ultimate, like you said, ultimate
Yes.
power. I think that's it. If you go back and like look at the emperors around the time of Christ, I can't remember whether it was Augustus or one of the ones before him, but like he would go to the Isle of Capri and they'd be lunching and they have slaves up on the cliffs, and he would mention one and the guy would jump off to his death. Like, it was just like total power. Like, that was the exercise of total power. And it's probably the same thing as like them watching gladiatorial combats or whatever. Like, I think that's where we're headed back to, is that kind of mentality of like the Antichrist will be like a king and have power to destroy nations and things like that. Like, and will want to exercise that power. So in the context of like 6G or high technology, it becomes like you could be on the other side of the world and hit the button, and the guy in Peoria drops it. I think they were actually doing that in COVID. You can see some of these weird falling down things. So if they put the kind of nanotechnology into your body, they actually got people who were literally giving off a signal from their body after some of these shots. So they were doing, I think, live action experimentation, which is why they encouraged and put the fear out there. Total fear, you need to get your shot, because we're doing experiments on all of you. We're killing some of you. We're seeing if we can control some of you through this nanotechnology. It was really incredible. Like, nothing like it has ever happened. And there's occultism there too, that box within a box type thing, and it's not the Antikythera, it's the Anticorona was in Operation Warp Speed. This kind of like Eastern symbolism and stuff. But we're headed to there's going to be people like, I already know Christians who got off grid. Like, I already know, because they know what's coming.
You're looking at one of them. Hopefully my house gets done being built here in a month.
Yeah. No, it's smart. Like, people are prepping, like, not overtly, but I know people, like, they're not giving out their location to whoever, they like, I'm off grid and I'm self-sustained already, because through the Holy Spirit or dreams or something, like, they've gotten the message.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, what's crazy is, oh my goodness, brother, you're really kind of freaking me out. You just said dreams. So I had a dream when I got saved 2 weeks into my salvation, before I even opened up and read any of the Gospels. Well, I read the Bible. I was starting it, but I didn't get to this part in Scripture that describes my dream at that time. And I saw the rapture. I was a part of it. But and again, eschatological views change. I lay everything out on the table. I investigate everything, and I'm not super dogmatic on everything, but I lean towards one idea. And this idea is that, I was on a big open piece of property, and I was with my loved ones that I have today. And I've always had these dreams where it feels like deja vu, because I dreamt it. It's not that I actually was here at one point in my life. I dreamt it. So when I have these deja vu moments, I'm like, oh, I remember that in a dream. It's supernatural. It's crazy. It's weird. I don't know. It's crazy. But because now I have a piece of property, I've got 14 acres, and I'm getting ready to try and build a home on it. And I'm going to try and build ecosystems that survive on each other. And where I was told to do this like 4 years ago, to sell my house and to go through this incredibly terrible process of building a home, by the way, and to get all the things that I have. But
Permits, holy smokes.
yeah, but we're getting there. We're getting there, man. I wanted to say something with the technology, with the mark of the beast idea. I think it's a very fascinating topic. If anything, it's one of my specialties. I think why they want to push this idea, merging technology with the body to offset your agency of your with your consciousness, is because you'll be told that this will be a utopia. You'll be like gods, right? You'll everything that the serpent deceived Eve in the garden, we're going to be deceived or beguiled or seduced into the same idea when the Antichrist is here. Don't get it twisted. It's the same exact entity that is doing both things, and that entity is not really he stays the same throughout nature. So I think it's because, and I think there will be a utopia. I think there will be even promotion that, hey, this will cure cancer. This will make you live to 200 years old,
They're
or
already
maybe
doing
longer.
that. They're already doing
right? And I think it's to build a world empire that is all hive mind together. Because where does the book of Revelation say that the false prophet and the Antichrist go? They go to the lake of fire. So if he can, and the other group of people that go into the lake of fire are the ones that took the mark of the beast. So he's trying to really get everyone in and locked into this can't go back scenario, so that your judgment will be just as his is. If that makes any sense.
It does, 100%.
It's wild, dude.
Well, I mean, that's what they said in the last days. Kids will dream dreams and say things. And so it's like when you see that, you're like seeing validations of, biblical statements, of scriptural statements. So I'm hearing from multiple things. I'm pretty tied in. I started off as a fringe Christian. That's really where I was, is like on Christian shows 15 years ago. So it's kind of coming full circle now. But people, if the Holy Spirit tells you something, believe it, do it. Start making decisions, start making movements in that direction. I got to wrap it up, Stephen.
Okay, sounds good, man. Hey, listen, thank you so much. If you wouldn't mind, for the audience that's stuck with us this long, just go ahead, plug your information. Folks, everyone, the links will be in the description below for every outlet that he has.
Signed copies of my books can be found at William Ramsey Investigates. I have a lot of articles and stuff like that I've drafted over the decade and a half I've been kind of out in public. I have all my books are on Amazon, and my podcast is William Ramsey Investigates, where I cover like some of the specific topics. We covered a lot of ground in 2 hours, but some of the specific topics I cover, whether it's 09A, Crowley, 9/11, on my podcast. I have about 1,500 episodes, and I think it's a pretty evergreen and good catalog of a lot of stuff. So you can just scroll through and find something you like. And I could try to cover a lot of different subjects, but good to talk with you, Stephen, and thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Thank you. God bless you, sir, and hope to work with you again in the future, man. So everyone, go check out his stuff and support him where he needs it the most. Links are in the description below. Thanks again, brother.
All right. Peace. God bless.
All right. Biblical Hitman debrief. Wow. William Ramsey on the Biblical Hitman. Sir, thank you very much. It was a blessing to have you on. What a awesome conversation. What a fun conversation. I think that was. And there's always things to learn here, folks. That's one of the biggest, and that's one of the most important things that I'm trying to do here, is to plant seeds with people to disconnect from how culture's got us absorbed in a lot of things that really are pointless. But shows that we have on here are educational, and they're also very intelligent conversations, and they're topics that are discussed that a lot of people do not know about or just aren't aware of. And William Ramsey is one of the best guys to do that with, and that was a lot of fun, man. We got into Aleister Crowley. We all know that gentleman. We all know what he was involved in, and if you don't know, now you know a little bit more than you used to. So we know that the occult is just saturated in our culture, our society today. It's something that people are not aware of. People are normalized to the world that we live in. You see a lot of occult practice as well, not only in movies like Mr. Ramsey was talking about, but we also see so many occult symbolism and teachings in just our supermarkets, in our stores, in Target, all of these things where it's a part of our reality. And I think they're continuously trying to put these things in our reality because one day it'll be part of this idea that the Bible gets into as far as Mystery Babylon. You know, we know that this Mystery Babylon was something that Aleister Crowley was trying to work on and to usher into this world, Jack Parsons, and plus other people out there. These guys are not the only ones that are working for the forces of darkness, but there is a collective of these people that are in connection with these entities. And I think it's because it's the fallen angel demonic realm and their agenda to usher in a new world order, to usher in a new world religion, government, and currency, just a whole different way of life. And they promote it as a utopia when the Bible promotes it as something that's completely inverted from that idea. And it's because Jesus Christ is the truth, the way, and the life. And God did come here and he died for us 2,000 plus years ago and changed the world. That's why you see evil present in the world today fighting with the light on a constant basis. It's because there's a spiritual war that is taking place in front of us. We are living on the battleground, and it's us to try and choose. It's for us to choose which team we want to advocate for and who we want to fight for. Give me the ball, coach. I'm fighting for the right team. I'm fighting for the light. Now, it's so funny how the workers of darkness and that collective and that team will say that they're fighting for the light as well, that this light is Lucifer, the light bearer. It's a super Gnostic view to look at Lucifer in that way, where he's the one that freed us from the gatekeeper, which is God. And, that's a false belief, right? If you think of tactically why God put us in the Garden of Eden, if you think of it tactically of why he created us to be ignorant of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and he also told us not to go mess with it. I'm a father, I have a daughter, and from a fatherly perspective, just as how God is with us, I tell my kid not to touch the electrical outlet. I don't have to explain to her why. I don't have to tell her why. I don't have to give her a bunch of detail to what's going to happen if she does that. I'm just telling her, don't do it. And it's because her conscious state, which is filled with curiosity as a 2-year-old is, I, as a father, not just tell her that, but I'm going to keep her away from it because she's going to want to do it anyway. And I think that's why we were built in this realm, this physical realm that has a disconnection from the spiritual nature. I think it's why it's different than the spiritual nature in itself. Because if you think about the sons of God, you think about the fallen, the angels, right? That these heavenly beings that are of a different nature than how we're created and what we're created for in this 3-dimensional realm, their nature is filled with way more understanding in how to, think. They don't have to think based off of how our brain has the capacity to think. They're spirit, so they're on a totally different level. And I think why God created us in the nature we're in is because he was trying to protect us from rebelling as the first offspring that God created, if that makes any sense. Which were the heavenly beings, because they rebelled. So I think God was making the right move, but it's the serpent that came into the garden and deceived us and seduced Eve to get us to sin. And then now sin is what separates us from God. Now it's sin that has tainted, infected, and blemished us for eternity. And that's why we need a Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. So listen, everyone, I wrap up my shows with this debrief, but I'm going to start and continue. I'm going to continue to wrap it up with my appreciation for you folks, everyone that's listened, everyone that's listened to this long. I appreciate you, and I have a love for you. I seriously do. I know the ads are they just suck, right? The ads suck, but I'm telling you right now, the ads are something that really is continuing to push me and motivate me to do what I'm doing. That's because it's covering the overhead of this podcast. And there's a lot of money, time, blood, sweat, and tears that go into this operation. But I just want to give my gratitude and my love out to you folks. I see the analytics and I see the show growing, and I see the amount of people that listen to the voices I bring on this platform and my voice along with it. But there's nothing but love for you here. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I'm praying for each and every one of you. And the mission of this podcast is your mission as well, and that's to keep pushing for the truth and to keep getting the light out there each and every day, each and every episode that we push out there. We're trying to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I just want to just give you folks, my appreciation with all of that. I love you guys very much. So with all that said, if you've stuck on with us this long, you want to support the show, it's free. Head on over to YouTube, which is the video format that this show runs. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, like the show, and share it with your friends, and drop comments, baby. Drop comments. I love the comments, and I try my best to get back to each and every single one. I really, really do. My wife laughs at me every time when I'm kind of glued to my phone talking to you folks. But she also sees how much you folks are enjoying the show, and she likes to see how I'm actually interacting with a community. I don't like calling you folks followers or subscribers or whatever. This is a community. This is a light-filled community, and a community that's has an agenda to do good. And that's what we're going to do here. And we're going to share a positive message with all that as well. But folks, listen, if you're not on the video side of things, come on over to the audio. While you're on the audio, we're there. We're there, baby. We're on everything. But you can check us out, primarily on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Spreaker. And while you're there, if you like the show, make sure you hit that 5-star review and drop a comment. Hit that follow button so you're notified as well. But, also hit the notifications bell if there's one there, so that you'll be notified when we drop episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. This is a lifestyle for me. I'm not going anywhere. And, I'm chain linked with every single one of you. And I'm really happy and excited and motivated and with what we're doing. And I think there's a lot of great purpose behind it. And you folks are there going through the journey with me. And got nothing but love for y'all folks. But God bless you guys and girls that are out there praying for you. That's a wrap. I'm going to see you next time.